Okay. Well, thanks for coming, y'all. It's great to see you. Another wonderful pipe show. I would just want to say right now, who can hear me? I'm not using a mic. Who can hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Great. Okay, so I'm not going to use the microphone.
You don't use the microphone?
No, I find that when I use a microphone, it just irritates people just as much as my normal voice. So, yeah, thank you, man.
So this is inside Fred's head live.
This is inside Fred's head, which is actually a torture chamber. So anyway, nice to see you all. We are going to talk about the smoke sublime. And what that means is how to attain the maximum possible enjoyment of the pipe. And there's lots of, how shall we say, controversial issues that we'll touch on today. There are things that you may not have thought of before. There are other things that you have thought of and you think of that I am totally ignorant of. And so please bear with me. There's lots of different viewpoints on what we're going to talk about. The pipe world has one, well, we'll say two. There's an incredible amount of pleasure and also an incredible lack of research. Okay, so we are going to talk about a lot of ideas and experiences, and I want you to kick in too if you want to, especially John. I know that you are looking forward to heckling me, and I welcome any heckles or anything else you may have. So the idea here is, where do we start? In order to have maximum enjoyment of anything, the first requirement is something called mindfulness. Okay, and I've studied mindfulness literally for over 50 years. I've published on it professionally. I do seminars on it. And I'm not going to bore you with all of that, but it's very, very important to understand that when you are enjoying something, you can enjoy it a lot more if there's not a lot of thoughts swirling in your head, if there's not a lot of like memories swirling in your head. All of those memories suck up attention, and all of those thoughts suck up attention, which makes it less easy to be present. And the more present we are, think of all the most valuable experiences of your life. Think of all the moments of enjoyment that you have had all during the times of your years of life on earth. And look at those pleasurable moments and think about how many of them was I deep in thought? How many of them was I actually present for, fully experiencing instead of partially experiencing? You see what I'm saying? And so what we're going to say here is the first requisite of enjoying anything, let alone a pipe, the first requisite is to be present, fully, in the moment, as they like to say, and in fully experiencing. Think about the moments, for example, when you've been in love, right? That full, rich experiencing of loving somebody and having somebody love you. Those moments, you don't sit around and think about things. You're fully present, experiencing. So the first goal of enjoying a pipe is to place yourself in the moment, in the mood, you could say, in a more vernacular kind of a way, to put yourself in that moment so that you're ready to fully experience whatever you're going to smoke and whatever pipe you're going to smoke it in, right? So what we're going to talk about today is experience of the pipe, experience of the tobacco, and experiencing the proper modality, so to speak, of actually smoking the pipe. There's a lot of wrong ways to smoke pipes, and I'm sure we've all seen them. Maybe some of us have, how shall we call, traumatic moments, maybe even PTSD moments of literally torching one's tongue. There are tobaccos that I've smoked, especially when I was younger. I started smoking pipes in 1967, and I remember having experiences that were the equivalent of taking an acetylene torch, lighting it, making that flame nice and blue and putting it directly on my tongue. There was no discernible difference that I could understand. So what we're going to talk about is how to smoke bowl after bowl without burning the hell out of your tongue. Does a tongue have hell in it? Anyway, the point being here is, what does it take to have the smoke sublime? And like I said, the first requisite is we have to be fully present. Okay, so what's going on? It's not a simple thing. There are certain people, and I've talked to many, they believe that the pipe itself doesn't matter. It's just a receptacle for the tobacco, and the pipe has no influence itself on the taste of that tobacco. Well, we're going to call that out right now as someone who hasn't had much experience with different pipes. And I've had, a wide range of pipes from a wide range of brands since, I really, in 67 is when I started really getting into the better grade pipes and better grade tobaccos in 1974. So that was exactly 50 years ago or so. And I don't have all the answers, I'll tell you right now. One of the things I've been doing here is enjoying pipes for 50 years. I still have all kinds of questions, things I still don't understand. There's so much that's going on in this field that there's lots of room for discussion and debate. So if I say something that goes contrary to your experience, well, hello, join the club, right? Because we all have different ways of looking at things and different experiences that we can support, okay? So the idea here is that I have some notes here that I have put together. By the way, the notes will bore you just as much as my normal rendition. So the first thing I want to talk about is the pipe, okay? Now, there are some people that I've heard say, directly, a corn cob is as good as anything else. And, and so I'm not knocking corn cobs. I wrote an article one time, some few years ago, that talked about the corn cob as actually being a pretty good way to experience a pipe. And I say, that, and take it for whatever it's worth. In my view, having smoked lots of corn cobs and using corn cobs to experiment with new tobaccos rather than put them in my good pipes, what I found is that on a scale from 1 to 10, about as good as you're going to do with a corn cob is a 7. Somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7. Not bad, pretty decent. When you hear people say corn cobs are crap, it's not true. There's lots of good experiences to be had with corn cobs. But the remarkable thing is, a really good piece of briar, straight grain, of course, and just kidding. But one of the really incredible things about a good piece of briar is it can provide you with a 9 out of 10, or even more, a 9.5 out of 10. And then there are just some pipes that make everything taste better. So you can get a really good smoke, but the really great pipes are what I call in my book, maybe you heard about my book, The Perfect Smoke. It's now been read by 17 people. And the idea here is that there are some pipes that, for some reason we don't understand, produce a smoke that is downright magical. And no matter what you put in that pipe, it tastes wonderful. Then there are other briar pipes that are worse than corn cobs, right? Like, for example, I recently, just for an experiment, I recently bought a Dr. Graybo. And I tried out the Dr. Graybo. Tasted like hell. I mean, it was just bitter and nasty. You see what I'm saying? Now, am I supposed to say that? Yeah, that's what you would expect me to say. But in this case, it was actually true. Now, the other thing that I did, I bought a Bones pipe from Chris Morgan's website. And the Bones, who's ever heard of the Bones pipes? There we go. I bought one of those. And you know what? It was a damn good pipe, and I smoked it next to a very well-known pipe maker. I won't say his name, but I smoked it next to a very well-known pipe maker's pipe that I paid $1,500 for. And you know what? They were not the same. Remember, no two pipes are the same, but they were equivalent in the amount of pleasure they delivered. So am I saying don't buy high grades anymore? I didn't say that. I didn't say don't buy high grades anymore, because even though the equivalent of the smoke itself was very, very intense and very, pleasurable, I find, I don't know about you, but I find that 35% or so of my enjoyment of a pipe is the shape, the grain, and all the other aesthetic aspects of pipe smoking that have nothing to do with the smoke itself. So we have to understand then that there are certain aspects of pipe smoking that can't be measured. And a lot of them, we all have pipe collections, and there's some of our collection that we smoke more than others. And there are some of our pipes that we have in our racks, but we never touch them for whatever reason. And the idea is that, what is it? Like, for example, I've owned some incredibly well-grained pokers, right? Really super straight grain. But I don't like pokers. No offense to anybody. They're not aesthetic to me. So I don't reach for them, and I end up selling them. I don't like to keep a pipe personally. I smoke all my pipes. I got no unsmoked pipes. But I don't keep them unless they smoke really well. What's the point? And they have to be appealing to me, because if they're not appealing, I won't reach for them to smoke. So there's all kinds of little factors here. Then there's a psychological factor that we call expectations. Expectations are very powerful psychologically. A person, I remember having them myself back in 1974, 75, 76. I was taught that the best pipes back then were Dunhills and Sheratons. And I would reach for those pipes, and I would think, wow, this is a Dunhill. It's got to smoke incredible, because that's a Dunhill. The point is that, Dunhills are great. The point is they smoke different. Every pipe, you put the same, who's ever had this experience? You smoke the same tobacco in different pipes, and every one of them tastes different. Raise your hand if that's been true for you. There we go. You see, so what the hell is going on there? See, if you're tasting wine, you pour it into a glass. It's the same. But when you take tobacco and pour it into a pipe, if that's what you do, you pour tobacco, I don't know. But when you put tobacco into that pipe, there's all kinds of different issues at play. It's the taste of the wood itself, one. It's the taste of the cake in the tobacco, two. All of those are going to influence the taste of the tobacco. Then, on top of that, some pipes smoke hotter than others. Now, there's some confusion around this hotter thing around, so if you don't mind my specifying here, there are certain tobacco, or, pipes that burn hot, okay? Now, what does that mean? For some people, when I've asked, believe me, many pipe smokers, what is a hot smoke to you? You know what many of them will say? If it feels hot in their hand. So let me ask you all a question. Who here has ever had a pipe that feels hot in your hand, but the smoke comes out cool to the tongue? Raise your hands. Just see, look at this. You see, there's something very important going on here. So the idea then is that some pipes will become very hot to the touch, but the smoke comes to the mouth cool, and that there's a ghost in here. This ghost has followed me all my life. I just want you to know I'm haunted. I admit it. Okay, so but the point is that the smoke comes to the tongue cool. Now, there's other pipes that feel hot to the touch, and the smoke burns the shit out of your tongue. Okay, who's ever had that experience? Right. Now, my question is, how can you taste tobacco when it's searing your tongue. The one thing that's supposed to be doing the tasting was just nullified, right? So the point now is you have to have a pipe with certain characteristics. One is it has to smoke cool. When I say cool, I'm not talking about to the touch. I'm talking about to the tongue. The smoke has to come ideally at room temperature. And then you can taste the tobacco so much better. That's one. The other aspect of the pipe that has to be there is that the pipe itself has to produce a pleasant flavor. There's taste factors in that wood that particular piece of briar will actually influence the tobacco. Now, the people who say the pipe doesn't matter, the pipe's just a receptacle, well, they're overlooking the fact that a pipe has unique characteristics that add to the flavor or detract. I once had a Costello Collection Great Line 4K, which would now today be maybe $1,500 or so, and it tasted like a sewer. So this is the opposite. Jared, you're smiling at me. The point is that it tasted so bad that I gave it to my friends back then well, they still talk to me. I don't know why. But anyway, we passed it around. There was 4 of us in a tobacco shop one day, and they all took some, hits off the pipe. I go, oh, what is that? So not only can a pipe taste fantastic, it can also taste very rancid. See, and one of them said that it tasted like a sewer, and I couldn't argue. So the point being then is that the pipe influences the taste of the tobacco, right? And it can be so bad that people can be throwing around things on the side of the room. The idea here is we don't keep those pipes. In fact, are you ready? Since I own that pipe and sold it to a dealer, I've seen it on eBay twice. Big surprise. But it had incredible grain. It had, it was beautiful 65 Costello shape. Beautiful pipe. Nice, stem work with the, the wood enhancements and all of that sort of thing. But so what's going on here? A lot of it is expectations. If my expectations drove my taste buds, I would taste that sewer pipe and I would think, oh, wow, Costello, man, it's good. I'm living high, living good, No. So this is why we have to drop our expectations and evaluate the smoke itself and the quality of the smoke and the temperature of the smoke. And like I said, briar is been the dominant form of pipe smoking now for how many, 150 years maybe or more. And we learn that different briar tastes different. And then there are some tobaccos. Have you ever seen this? There are some tobaccos that are great in certain pipes and not so impressive in other pipes. Who's ever seen this? You see all the ambiguity here. Okay, there's so much uncertainty. You can't make predictions. I have certain pipes, I've heard people say, well, I buy a pipe, I set it aside for Virginias. No, see if it likes Virginias first, then set it aside. But some people, they make that assumption, all pipes smoke the same. No, it's just not true. So you can have the same tobacco and the same pipes, and they will taste different. There are some tobacco or some pipes that I have found that just don't like Latakia. They taste like caca, and Latakia are when you put it in Latakia in that particular pipe. And yet, if all you smoke is Virginias in that pipe, it sings. So what the hell's going on there? And we can start speculating and take a guess here and there, but you see there's too much ambiguity. And so all we can do is study the individual pipe on its own merit, you see, and judge it according to that pipe itself and not judge it by the brand. Now, I've gotten in trouble over this in the years. So this is a controversial topic, but pipes from the same brand taste different. They're not all the same, and not all Dunhills are the same. Not all Costellos are the same. There's variation within the brand itself. Now, in the wine world, it's pretty simple. You pour the different wine in the different glass, and you taste it, and the glass is a neutral substance, right? It's not going to influence the wine at all. And you can taste the difference then between the wine from glass to glass. Sometimes it can be the shape because some will allow for more aroma. Sure. But the point is that in terms of the actual taste itself is what we're looking at in the pipe. And some pipes, like I said, are really good. You can throw anything into them and they're magnificent. I call that in my book magic pipes because I didn't know what else to call it. I believe it wasn't that simple. I tried to come up with another name, but the point is that those smokes are magical. You don't forget those. So who's here has ever owned a pipe? Help me out here. Who here has ever owned a pipe that whatever you put in it was just fantastic? Raise your hands. And okay, now who here has ever owned a pipe that only certain tobaccos were great in it and others not so good? See, this kind of variation is what we have to look at. We can't go by stereotypes. You see, I mean, I've heard people say, well, Costellos are really good with English tobacco and Dunhills are really good with English tobacco. And, you know, there's other pipes that are really good with Virginia. No, there might be something that a person experienced with one pipe. But you see, to do proper research, you have to talk about sampling size. You have to smoke many, many of that one particular brand before you can start to get a true impression of what's going on. Now, I don't know about you. I've never heard of any pipe studies actually done. And even then, the person that's evaluating it, that person or those people, their taste might be totally different than yours. You know how this goes, right? You look up a restaurant and the restaurant has really good ratings. You go there and you think it's trash, right? So there's so many variations. What the point that I'm trying to get across is that there's so much ambiguity in the pipe world, and there's so many things we don't understand. I've been doing this for 50 years, just high grades for 50 years, 57 years if you want to include all the times that I spent literally destroying my taste buds. So you see what I'm trying to say here? This is my introduction, okay, to what's going on. And now I want to talk about, I actually have some notes, believe it or not. So the important thing is other factors. What you had for dinner might affect your smoke. Who's ever noticed that? What you had for dinner can affect the smoke that you're having now. Sometimes not so much and sometimes profoundly. Or sometimes you smoke the same tobacco. How about this? Who's ever smoked the same tobacco? Honestly now, who's ever smoked the same tobacco in a pipe 3 or 4 times and it's slightly different each time? Anybody? Damnedest thing, isn't it? How do you make sense out of all this? I don't know. But the one thing we're going to look at now is what makes the smoke sublime. What are the necessary conditions and sufficient conditions to make the smoke itself truly sublime? Okay? Okay, before we go any further, any questions, criticisms, whatever, even if the criticisms are personal, John, I'm open and
How wonderful you were with color coordinating the lanyard with your shirt today.
Pure accident, I assure you. But yes, Rick. Go ahead, Rick.
I just want to say, since
you and I have, in the old days, disagreed. I just want to say I agree with 100% of everything you said.
Oh, thank you. Great. This is Rick. I have tremendous respect for Rick, just so you know, and I appreciate your input. So the important thing now is that, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm curious, in your long experience, how much of this do you think is brand centric? By that I mean, I've met people who say, I only smoke XYZ pipe. They're the best. And you could put the crappiest XYZ pipe in front of, oh, that's great. And it seems like there's almost a terrible peer pressure that if you don't like XYZ pipe.
There is peer pressure. It
and
has
how
to
much
do
of
with,
that is-
that's what I was talking about with expectations.
Right.
See, if I buy a Dunhill, if I buy a Sheraton, I have an expectation. There are some people, I've actually heard them say, Sheratons taste like this, Dunhills taste like that. But I have asked some of those people, if we were to have a blind tasting where, you know, all you had was something like maybe one of those rubber tips that you put around the edge, you know, into the stem, and all you could taste was the tobacco itself inside of a paper bag. I used to run blind tastings in the wine world where you'd have the bottle inside a bag so nobody knew what they were drinking. And you'd be amazed how many wine experts would sometimes choose a cheap wine as their favorite. It was amazing. And so what's the point? The expectations are really important, right, Paul? So are the different brands? Well, you know, how about this? Now, Rick knows much more about Bonards than I do, but I talked to Mimo once, Mimo Romeo, the famous briar cutter. And he told me that the last 3 years of Bo's life, he was buying Mimo's wood, which was a different kind of wood that he used to use, which was from Corsica, if I'm not mistaken. And so, was there a difference? Nobody could tell. Yes.
What about length of the pipe as far as cooling the smoke?
Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. Are you always ahead of the speaker when, you know?
Probably.
Yeah, okay, well, I admire you for that. And also, I have to tell you, it's not hard to be ahead of me, okay? So, so the point, well, yes, Bob.
Can I get my drink now?
It's been more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. Oh, don't worry about it, Bob. You'll be asleep in 5 minutes. So, yeah, right. So anyway, John, did you see how Bob did that? Yeah, it was very
I
smooth.
already checked the time a few minutes.
Okay. Okay. So what are the factors then that really account for a pipe that is truly a magnificent, if you will, transcendent smoke? When you're smoking this and it comes to your mouth and you're going, my God, how can it taste so good compared to other, who's ever had that experience? Right? See, look at this we're all on the same page here from the looks of it. So one of the things is a cool smoke. Okay, we talked about that. Let's talk about the mechanics of the cool smoke. Some people will say that engineering is the big factor. What is engineering? It's just drilling, you know, it's all it is. It's a fancy word for having the proper drillings. Okay, that's good, you know, but the other point is that what if the drillings are perfect but the pipe is made of horse shit? How is that pipe going to taste? Chances are it will taste like horse shit. Not that I know what that tastes like, just so you know. Okay? I know somebody's going to say something. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, see, how does he know what a sewer tastes like? Yeah. Right. Yeah, these are all metaphors, okay? Does that get me off the hook? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so the idea here is what produces a cool smoke? Well, first of all, that briar has to be such that it absorbs heat. Now, there's two modes of this. Briar can absorb heat and then dissipate it. You ever have a thin-walled pipe that smokes cool? And if you ever had a thick-walled pipe that smokes hot? That's not supposed to happen. But you see, Mother Nature doesn't go by the rules and expectations that we put down. Mother Nature has her own way of doing things. And we're not going to dictate to Mother Nature. I mean, I've tried, and Mother Nature had a hell of a time on me. Look at my face. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that a good piece of wood has to, like I said, deliver the smoke to the tongue at room temperature. Okay, so what are those factors? General rule, a thicker wall will make for a cooler smoke. General rule. But that doesn't necessarily hold out, because why? A thicker pipe will absorb the heat into the wood, but a thinner pipe can dissipate the heat. That's the whole point. The thinner pipe can dissipate the heat. And so another point, which I think you were getting at, was the shank, the length of the shank. Some people will say, well, like Tony Soderman, for example, swore by this. He bought pipes with shanks that, not the pipe, the shanks were that long, right? And he insisted that the long shank, because of its length, will contribute to absorbing the heat every bit as much as the bowl will. And so he gets a cooler smoke. I believe there's something to that. Now, can you make a general rule? I don't think so, but you could call it a trend, right? If you wanted to. So the point then is that you want the pipe to be cool. Once again, I'll say it again. Smoke comes to the tongue at room temperature. Now, there's variations on this. Some will still have a little heat in it, warmth you could call it. But the point is, what temperature is the smoke that allows us to have the most taste experience? And that's generally room temperature from what I have found. Now, so that's one aspect. Now, the other aspect is sometimes people talk about a good smoking pipe, a high quality pipe, right? Once again, I refer to the rather unsavory metaphor I used earlier. Sometimes you can have a perfectly drilled pipe. Everything's right. The draft hole, everything is right. The diameter of the chamber, everything is right. But if the wood's not there, then you don't have a good taste. So I think that rather than saying we have a good smoking pipe, I think what we really talk about is a good tasting pipe, because that's really what it's all about. I've had pipes that smoke cool and taste like crap. You know, well, let me ask you all this. Who's ever had a pipe that smokes cool, but the taste was always off? Anybody? Yeah, there's a few of us. So the point now is that we want to determine how the pipe is going to taste, and I do not know. I've asked Mimo, for example, if he can look at briar. This guy's like one of the world experts on briar. Mimo Romeo, he is also a pipe maker, by the way. And I've asked him, can you tell by looking at a piece of wood what its smoking qualities are going to be? And he said no. I even asked him, can you look at a piece of wood and tell what country that briar came from? And he said, no, I can't do that either. So a lot of people will say, well, Grecian briar is better, Sardinian briar is better, Corsican briar is better. You know, I don't know. I mean, if Mimo can't do it, I'm not going to pretend that I can do this. I can't tell where a pipe came from, right? So that's something that's very important. And unfortunately, you have to buy the pipe to know what it tastes like, last I heard, right? I mean, you could try, just picking up a pipe off of a table here at the show and say, I'll see you in 20 minutes. That doesn't go too well. Yeah. Yeah, right. Test drives, they don't. Yeah. So the idea then is that the only way you can tell what the influence of that pipe is going to have on the taste of the tobacco is by trying it out. It's very unfortunate because, you know, in your collection, you know, there are some pipes that really smoke great and other pipes that don't smoke so great. But there's another issue too. Who here has ever had a pipe that smoked bad for you, tasted bad, you sell it or trade it, and the guy comes back and says, oh, I love that pipe. Oh, it tastes so good. Who's ever had that experience? I know what the hell is going on, right? So you have to adjust and account for individual differences. There's individual differences that we all have. Some people have said that it's physiological. I would assume, of course it is. So the idea here then is that the coolness of the smoke is crucial because you can't taste without it. Okay, let's move to the next point now. There's the next point is, what does the tobacco taste like when it's cool and comes to the tongue? Now, there's a wine term that I like to use. It's called complexity. There's also a wine term called finesse. This is where the tobacco itself can have different flavors. Now, this is not the only thing here. I'm going to give you the alternative in a minute. But they can have different flavors that come to the tongue. And you can taste several different taste trends on your tongue. And what's that about? You can have sweetness, right? You can have a little bit of an acidity kind of a flavor that you may like or you may not like. You know, like for example, back in the days of McClellan, there was a tang that we used to talk about that McClellan had. No, well, you know, that's if you smoke French fries. But anyway, the idea is that there's lots of variation here. See? So the idea is that you look for complexity, which is lots of different flavors interplaying and intermingling with each other in a harmonious way. Or you can say that that complexity and that finesse, the finesse is when you have the complexity, and forgive my language, it caresses your tongue and makes you swoon. And how many times have you had a pipe and you go, geez, how can it smell? How can it taste that good? You know? And then you put the same tobacco in another pipe and you go, huh? What's going on here? See, so what's the point overall? I'm still working on this, but what's the point overall? You want to discover which pipes produce the best experience in what kinds of tobacco, right? Now, there are some, like I said, magic pipes, but for best I can determine, a magic pipe, I don't know for sure, but going by my own collecting, about 1 in 150 pipes, 1 in maybe 100 pipes. I don't have any scientific research for this, obviously. 1 in 100, 150 pipes is going to be a magic pipe, where no matter what you put in it, it's fantastic. I don't even understand that. But I know that lots of people have had, and we just saw some of the people here that have experienced something like that. So that's one thing. Now, another is that sometimes you can have pipes, I don't know why, I don't understand this, they actually diminish the flavor. Whatever you put in that pipe, it actually comes out where the flavor is actually reduced from what it would be in another pipe. Who's ever seen that? Yeah. So the idea here is that some pipes will maximize the flavor of a tobacco and others actually diminish it or dissipate it. What the, you know, as they would say, you know, on the internet, WTF, right? So what I'm trying to say is that there are other pipes, you ready, that intensify the flavor. I don't understand this, but there are some pipes that actually intensify the flavor as opposed to dissipating it. What the hell, what is this? I don't have answers for you. I don't understand. And I've had these conversations with a lot of people. So I feel fairly confident in sharing it with you. So you can have a pipe of great finesse and complexity where it brings out the complexity in the tobacco. And then there are other tobaccos that are just, boom, hit you right in the head with the power, like some Virginias, for example, will do that. right? And they literally knock you over the head with the power and the big flavor hit that you get, but no complexity and no finesse. It's just like knock you on your ass, incredible flavor. Well, who's going to argue with that? It's a good thing. But now consider this, once again, borrowed from the wine world. I have seen tobacco or wines, for example, like Chateau Latour, that can combine complexity and finesse with power. And those are the most expensive wines. And those are the greatest vintages. See what I mean? So that's another requisite of the sublime smoke. Big flavor, harmonious. Some of it is monochromatic, but it tastes so damn good you don't care about complexity and finesse. Others with complexity and finesse that just, like I say, seduce you with this wonderful flavor. And then there are some that have both. And so certain tobaccos, in my experience, and maybe not yours, and with the same tobaccos, maybe you have it with different tobaccos, some of them you see that combination of complexity and finesse mixed with power. See, those, in my opinion, judging from what I've learned in the wine field, those are the tobaccos that we seem to most treasure. Now, when I conducted wine tastings, I found that there were certain people who would spend huge amounts on wine. In fact, I'll give you an example. There was a lawyer friend I used to have that would come to a lot of blind tastings. These are blind tastings. People didn't know what they were drinking, and until the end, of course. And then he was always complaining about certain wines that were supposed to be really good, and he didn't understand it. And then through a couple of blind tastings that he attended, I sat down and I said, "You don't like a wine to be complex, do you?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "You just want that straightforward, in your face, knock you on your ass flavor." And he said, "Well, yeah, that's what aren't they all supposed to be like that?" Hello? No, they're not supposed to be all like that. So there are some people that prefer the monochromatic, getting hit in the head with a club, and there's your fantastic taste. As opposed to the finesse and the complexity mixed with power that other people prefer. You see what I'm saying? So once again, we end up in the similar situation. We have a situation where one person thinks that this is a wonderful tobacco, and another person says, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And then they try it in another pipe that delivers all kinds of different qualities, and they go, "Oh, this tobacco is fantastic." So I have certain pipes that I reserve for certain tobaccos. Don't know why. Then I have magic pipes that are just great in everything. I can't wait to see what this tobacco is going to taste in the magic pipe. See what I'm saying? So it's fascinating, utterly fascinating. And that's why some of us are so devoted after so many years of pipe smoking, and they look at you in the eye. Greg Pease and I have talked about this many times. They look at you in the eye and they say, "I still don't understand it." And I don't understand it. It's like I light up a bowl and Mother Nature's laughing at me. And I tell Mother Nature, "Are you just like everybody else?" So I can't help it. So, sorry. So what I'm saying then is that there's different flavor profiles that certain pipes will deliver. And this is why one pipe can taste fantastic to one guy, and the guy doesn't like it. He trades it or sells it to somebody else, and they say, "Oh, what a fantastic smoke." There's other pipes. They taste like shit for one person, and then it goes to the next person, and they say it tastes like shit too. So this is not totally subjective. There's an objective quality and a subjective quality, and it's a mistake to choose either end. Yeah, Fred.
Another variant that I sometimes experience is that there'll be a certain pipe and tobacco that smoke fine, I enjoy, and some evening I'll try that and it doesn't smoke as well as it has before, that combination, but will again later. So it's just that.
In the same pipe.
In the same pipe.
Right on. Thank you, sir. Yeah, who can explain this shit? Is it what you had for dinner? You know, does the taste of McDonald's French fries qualitatively different than filet mignon? What? Humidity has something to do with it. We're getting there. You know. Huh? Packing, we're getting there. Okay. So once again, you know, it's really hard. See, when you've been deprived of intelligence, you find people are way ahead of you. You know what I'm saying? I've grown up and I've lived with this, and so I'm just come to terms with it, I guess. But you're right. So let's talk about packing, right? There are certain packing methods that you have to spend, if you pack it, you have to spend more time with the flame lighting the tobacco. And sometimes, what does that do? It produces a hot smoke, right? Sometimes the superior packing, tell me if you agree with me or not. Sometimes the superior packing will be so intense that you get more flavor out of the tobacco, because why? The flame is burning more tobacco, you know, per what, cubic millimeter or whatever, is burning more tobacco and delivering more flavor. But see, once again, if the burning is hotter, then you tend to lose some of the flavor because you can't taste it. It's too hot. See what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you, or did I miss something? Anything you want to add? Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. So there's that aspect. Now, so we have complexity and finesse and power and all these different factors, and sometimes they just boil down to, wow, that pipe's a really great smoke. But see, you have to think, when they say that, a great smoke with what? See, there's so much complexity here that it can sometimes boggle the mind. And this is why I started off this talk with the whole mindfulness thing, because the mindfulness demands that we be present. Holy mackerel, time flies. The mindfulness demands that we be present so that we can study all the nuances going on with the pipe in terms of its drilling and the pipe's taste itself, and the different styles of tobacco. We have to be mindful and present, or we can't follow all of these different variations and flavor profiles that exist right there in the complexity and in how those different flavors mix with each other. So if you're smoking a Latakia and the pipe doesn't like Latakia, what I mean by that is that it doesn't taste good with Latakia, well then maybe it's time to try a different tobacco with it. And what I've done many times is I will ream that pipe. If I try many times and it just doesn't like Latakia, I will ream that pipe and try it only with Virginia, and you'd be amazed. I have a Wolfgang Becker pipe like that. That's a beautiful wolf print back then, when there was only one wolf print for his highest grade. And the pipe is gorgeous, and it's already superior because it has straight grain. No, sorry, I'm just kidding. Straight grain has nothing to do with the quality of a smoke. Okay, I hate to disappoint you. Maybe I hate to disappoint me, but anyway.
Part of the expectation.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. There it is. So the idea then is that in this Wolfgang Becker pipe, I used to smoke it with English tobacco, and it just never got there. I reamed it out, tried some Virginia. It sang, literally sang to me. It was so delicious. See? And so these are the kinds of things. So basically, don't give up on a pipe if you're smoking English and it doesn't give you the flavor profile that you want. It might be a Virginia pipe. But the other thing is you can't tell ahead of time by looking at the pipe. And this is the lesson that Mimo teaches us, you see. Any other questions?
How about the tamper?
Do you always raise hell when you come to these kinds of things? Okay, so anyway, George says, what about the tamper? Okay, now here we go. This is going to be controversial, okay? The price of the tamper directly influences. You asked for this. The price of the tamper and the material that the tamper is made from is going to directly influence the flavor of the tobacco and even influence the pipe. I have had Dr. Graybo's that I have used, 925 silver tampers. I have one tamper that's 100% except for the tamp part, a lapis lazuli, right? I've had tampers made of amber, and I have found that the high quality tamper, the high priced tamper with the superior materials will actually transform the Dr. Graybo into a Sheraton Coronation.
Are you trying to sell him some of those campers?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So obviously that's bullshit. Okay. Oh no.
On the other hand,
Okay.
part of the whole experience is being in a comfortable place, being with the pipe you love and appreciating its aesthetics and this great grain or whatever you love and the tobacco that you like and whatever. And also the lighter, the tamper, all part of the experience of things that give you pleasure as part of the whole
And the appreciation of it all. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Aged matches.
Not brass, is all we can. Now you're going.
Okay. So in case you didn't hear it, George said aged matches. Okay. Now you can get these. They're very rare. You will not find aged matches on eBay, okay?
You find them in his.
And they're not going to, yeah, that's right. And after this is over, if you email me, I will give you George's address so that you can go get his aged matches. Yeah, yeah, or dating site. So, okay, that was really good, George. Nice job there. Any other questions?
Important for cadence and slow sipping to get a cool smoke.
Yeah, that's another good one. Though obviously, the harder you puff, the higher the temperature is going to be, and therefore the less you'll be able to enjoy it. Now, there are people. This is another area of controversy. There are people who are totally devoted to the one light bowl. Okay? Yeah, and you said, oh, they would listen to him. Yeah, man, I got this. I got through that bowl with two matches, man, two lights, and I went all the way down to the bottom. Never mind that he cooked his tongue for in the need of 6 months of healing. But the idea is there's some people that do that. Now, this is a trap to fall into because, it's a pain in the ass when your pipe goes out. But the remedy is not to relight it and keep it burning at temperatures that exceed 2,000 degrees. You see what I'm saying? So that's a very, very important point. But we all like a tobacco that burns well. There's no question there. The question is how well.
So the moisture or dryness makes a big difference as well.
Yes. So thank you. So the moisture of the tobacco is, from my experience, the more moist it is, the harder it is to keep lit. But there's another factor too. When you're smoking a moist tobacco, as opposed to a drier tobacco, there'll be more steam released as that moisture is cooked. There's steam that comes to the tongue, and that can make the flavor experience very negative because you're not tasting the tobacco anymore, you're tasting the steam. And steam, as you know, only exists when the temperature is very high. Is that what you meant, Fred? Anything you want to add?
No, but tobacco in general, we have preferences, and I prefer to be a little more on the dry side, and I think it smokes better than a moister.
I agree. So let's do a quick survey here. Who likes their tobacco more on the moist side? Raise your hands. Okay, I see one hand. Who likes it more on the dry side? See, now that's really interesting. But, you know, we all have a good friend. He's not here with us that I've seen so far, Fred Janusik, who was a mentor of mine and an absolutely wonderful person. He likes them bone dry, like autumn leaf dry, the stuff that you sweep to the curb, you see what I mean, dry. And he loves it like that. And I've tried it like that. And yeah, I can see why he likes that. I like just a little teeny bit of moisture because I think it carries the flavor better. That's just my opinion. What do you think on that, Fred?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's another, yes, Rick.
The late Jim Benjamin used to say to me, the best moisture for tobacco is crispy on the outside and cold on the inside. When you put your fingers in, the cold is the moisture.
Really?
And that's been my rule of
Oh,
thumb
that's a
for
nice,
years.
I like that. Jim Benjamin was a hell of a guy, wasn't
Yeah, very smart.
he? Yeah.
I got a question about
Yeah.
how do we know that it enters our mouth at room temperature? Because I always thought it was like 400 degrees or 800 degrees. I've heard different things. You know, the fire in the pipe bowl. Have there been measurements?
You go like this. You ready? Try this experiment right now. Pucker up and go inhale some air in the room. That's the room temperature. And if the smoke that coming out of your pipe is the same temperature as when you go like this with no pipe at all, then you know you got room temperature.
Right before it goes out.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And then what do you do? You get a triple torch lighter and you say, I'm sick and tired of smoking this damn pipe. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, Doug.
Fred, I really enjoyed your talk and I agree with everything you said, but I thought I'd come to the pipe show, maybe find, out how to buy the perfect pipe. And I don't think you gave me any advice as to how to pick a pipe.
Let me tell you something I learned from my family.
Okay.
I'm worthless. Okay.
It's a great talk, but how do you pick the pipe then? You gave us all these different things. You didn't tell us.
Yeah, right.
Smoking, no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a simple answer for you.
All right.
But there are certain guidelines. And what are those certain guidelines? There are some brands that are more dependable than others. There are some brands that are more dependable than others, even in estate pipes, right? Another thing you can do, this is kind of dicey, but take the pipe that you're thinking about buying, whether it's smoked or unsmoked, and, take a couple of test inhales, right, or whatever, and draw it, because sometimes you'll get a flavor out of that pipe, even though it's doesn't have any tobacco in it. So sometimes you can do that. Oh, well, that's a whole nother story. As Rick Newcomb has made us very, very aware over the years, the quality of the drilling has to be a certain number of millimeters, because if it's too tight, what do? Tell me if I'm wrong. If it's too tight, we puff harder to compensate for the lack of inflow of air, and it just heats up the tobacco. Now, on the other hand, in my experience, if the drilling is too wide, then it reduces the amount of flavor that you get in a draw. Does that sound reasonable to you? So Rick I learned a lot from Rick on that particular point. So,
But along that line,
yeah.
presuming you're not adding resistance, what about filters?
Pipe filters?
Yeah, there are some people just love a 9mm.
Some people
like a balsa. Some
I
like a
have
Tito,
had I have tried the balsa,
right,
and I have tried meerschaum filters and all kinds of things, and so far I have not been impressed enough to want to go that road. But is there something to it? Could be. Let me know if you.
I just was curious because there's a really dedicated camps on
Oh,
both sides,
absolutely.
filtered, non-filtered, discussion.
especially in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty new, only about 3 years smoking a pipe, but what about the temperature outside? It seemed like when I started smoking in the winter, it was pretty decent, and then one day I went into work and it was summer and it was 90 degrees, and it was like, holy, I'm in an oven and I'm smoking this thing.
See, yeah, and then it's 90 degrees out, and you do the the inhale in room temperature is 90 degrees,
Right.
and you don't want that. I would suggest wait till evening.
There's a lot of factors with pipe and tobacco and all of these things we talked about. But one thing that's also important is setting yourself up for success with enjoyment of the pipe, like you were saying, with being in a good state of mind, how you feel.
Absolutely.
Also the the
Absolutely.
environment. I mean,
Yeah,
you can think of a clear summer night, look up the stars. That might be that's a really good ambience, or sitting in front of.
but see what that does.
Fire,
If I may be so bold.
looking out.
Sorry to cut you off, but if I may be so bold, what's happening there is that when we're really in a good mood and a really wonderful environment, it makes us more present and more mindful to the experience, which will enhance the pleasure factor in itself.
There's a lot of things you can do to kind of set yourself up for success, to enjoy the pipe, that are not really related to the pipe itself.
You're right. So the other thing is humidity in the air. Humidity in the air actually contributes to the humidity factor in the tobacco. So the more humidity you're surrounded by in the room, the more it's going to make the tobacco more wet. I don't know how else to put it. Moisture, yeah. So the idea then is one has to be aware of the humidity. Now,
And the humidity,
That's if
I
you're
find it's
smoking-
more condensation that it causes.
that's true too. So
What about the quality of liquor in the opposing hand?
the quality of liquor. Okay, there's different views on this. One view is you smoke really huge, rich Esserman-sized Magnum pipes,
Oh, yeah.
and you pour the liquor directly.
It's there.
Yeah, and okay. So, any other questions?
You're missing the major part of this whole,
I always do that. I always do that. What's up, Bob?
it's the pipe cleaner. That's,
The the pipe cleaner should be made of not just, I don't know, you tell me what you think. Most pipe cleaners are made of cotton, okay? It's the same principle as the tamper, okay? You want a pipe cleaner that's made of cashmere.
absolutely.
You want a pipe cleaner that's made of silk, you see? And, and there should be a little label on the tobacco package or the pipe cleaner package that says 100% wool or whatever it might be. So thank you once again, Bob. I appreciate that. Yeah. So you guys, you all been great. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. Take care.